And I'll recognize myself for 5 minutes. We each get 5 minutes to ask questions. I'll start with you, Mr. St. Germain, if I can. What would you recommend that we do to reach folks, young people, who are at risk into falling into the crime and drugs and things that you said happened early on, but then ultimately it worked for you? Thank goodness it did, and now you're obviously a very productive member of society and helping others to avoid what the traps that you fell into. What would you recommend that we do to have more people move in your direction and not go the wrong way?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your question. What I would say is that I have, in my young 28 years on this earth, I have never met a young person who wanted to do bad. I've met young people who've adapted to the circumstances. So most young people, I know and I believe, if they're giving opportunities, right, because a lot of the things we're referring to here, some of the issues young people face, the bedrock is poverty. And a lot of them are growing up in neighborhoods where there's not too many opportunities available to them. So jobs are scarce. The educational system is dysfunctional. In some of these communities. Some of these young people have folks in their lives themselves who are going through the system, who are not currently involved in their lives due to mass incarceration. Some of them are just basically trying to survive on a regular basis. So I believe that any young person, regardless of which region of the country they come from, their ethnicity or background or gender, if they're put in certain circumstances where they have to survive, young people will survive by any means necessary. So some of the things I believe Congress can do and this committee can do is to fund and incentivize some of the programs that we know work for young people, which we've talked about here on this panel already. So providing better educational opportunities for young people, investing in mental health, providing vocational training, giving them opportunities prior to entering the system, allowing them to grow and make mistakes, and if they do enter the system, then still provide the rehabilitative measures which they need to propel and move forward and succeed out of some of the circumstances they're dealing with. So I think, again, some of those things are common things that you want for your family, and every member of this committee wants for their family, is a safe home, a job where you can provide for your kids, schools that will educate these young people rather than pushing them through the school to prison pipeline. And I believe if we provide some of these services, which we know to work as an intervention, we'll stop a lot of young people from entering the system. Young people will make mistakes.
I'm going to have to cut you off because I'm going to run out of time, but thank you very much. Mr. McDonald, let me turn to you next. Indiana appears to be one of the only states that has local school districts teaching in the residential facilities. How is that working, and could you comment on whether it's had any effect on recidivism rates, for example?
Well, it works pretty well. It's actually, Mr. Chair, thank you for the question, and I would have to agree. Education is a huge impact on the lives of these young people who've come in with the system. It's actually a basis of Indiana that we do educate our young people that are in DYS facilities or DOC facilities. It works very well for those children that are acceptable to the education as well. As far as recidivism reduction numbers, I can't speak to those right offhand. Generally speaking, though, education is one of the factors that does help reduce recidivism.
Thank you. I've got about a minute left, Mr. Vignati. Could you comment? What would you recommend that Congress do to help juveniles who are at risk of falling into the criminal justice system? What's worked in Georgia? What do you think would be good for us or nationally to others who may be listening?
Yes, sir. And thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. I would respectfully say that you take a page out of Georgia's book and look at some of the things that we've done by shifting some of our funding from an institutional focus to community focus and focus on things that have been proven to work that the panel has talked about and incentivize those types of programming. We've been able to protect public safety and still reduce our detention population. We've taken 259 beds offline. We have provided capacity for these evidence-based services in every judicial circuit in our state. And now we're properly assessing risk of youth. So we're being very thoughtful and targeted in which youth we securely detain and confine. And I think that's what we have to focus on here. We, as a state, were locking up the wrong youth. We have to be thoughtful, and we're still able to protect public safety by doing that and providing the front-end services that the panel has talked about.
Thank you very much. My time's expired.